Here we have the Federal Dropship. It's the Federation's first offering to you if you align yourself with them and do a few jobs. Actually saying it's their first offering implies it's free, but they're offering it to you as a reward for being a good little munchkin and doing all their work for them. It isn't. Even if you ignore the time it takes to rank up to the federal rank of Midshipman, trading your profits for reputation, it'll still cost you $14 million to purchase, plus all the associated outfitting costs that would go with any new ship. So what is it? Well, it's a ship that Core Dynamics designed and started manufacturing exclusively for the Federation around the year 3300, so it's one of the newer ship designs that are out there. It's not the best looker though, subjectively it's one of the uglier designs, at least externally. The best way to describe this ship's look is that it's like a brick of armour, with a small nose, tiny wings, and a massive forehead. Internally though, it's much better looking. Anything with a central pilot's chair is a win in my opinion, although if you bring a friend they'll have to sit off to the side. But if that's the case, it's your ship, so they'll either have to put up or shut up. Everything inside looks well thought out, with the exception of the coffee machines. On the plus side, there are two of them, but the designers clearly thought that Stretch Armstrong was going to be the buyer, as they look like they're just out of reach from the pilot, which means that you actually have to get up to grab your cup of angry bean juice. First and foremost, the dropship is a combat ship, with slots for 4 medium hardpoints and 1 central large hardpoint. Convergence is acceptable, and with 4 utility mounts and a decent number of internal slots, you have enough space to make the dropship a fairly formidable ship on the face of it. But it has its flaws. For example, if you're planning on taking your dropship to a far-off system to fight in a community goal, it's probably going to be a long trek to get there, as the jump range is poor at best. Even with engineering, it's nothing to write home about. 40 light years per jump is theoretically possible to squeeze out of it, but if you push it up that far, either you won't be carrying any guns, or you'll have them but you won't be able to power them up. Unless your plan is to sit there, drink a lot of coffee, look threatening, and be in the vain hope that your enemy surrenders just by looking at you. Also, if you're used to relying on shields to keep you alive, you might run into issues here. The base shield strength is roughly on par with the Viper Mark IV or the Imperial Eagle, which is fine on a small ship. But on the dropship you'll be wanting more, especially given the larger hit profile, slower engines and less manoeuvrable thrusters. It's not all bad though. What the dropship lacks in shields, it more than makes up for with armour. Its base armour strength is higher than that of the Python, a ship that costs over 40 million more credits. Properly packed out, you don't have ramming as a last-ditch attempt to save your skin. You have your ship's nose and massive forehead as a weapon in its own right. That is, if you can gather the speed to boink your opponent before they run away, as the engines aren't great. Neither are the manoeuvring thrusters for that matter. This thing slides harder than a dog that's just hit a polished floor mid-sprint. Exploration can be tedious given the short range, but if you want to go for the maximum number of systems passed on a given trip, I can see it working. At least you've got the internal slots to bring all of the toys that you need. Except for a fighter. There isn't room for one of those apparently, which is odd since the Federal gunship is based on exactly the same frame and can take a fighter just fine. Not that you need a fighter for exploration, but it's a nice extra if you want to do a little bit of low-risk canyon running on your travels. For mining, it's surprisingly not bad given the hardpoint availability and internal slots. You can bring all the equipment you need, plus you still have your military compartments to buff out the hull. In terms of cargo, you can load in 166 tons, which beats out the Alliance Chieftain line of ships, among others. But again, you need to consider how far your mining spot is and how far you have to go to offload your cargo, as it may be a long trip and with more jumps, and that means more time for the enterprising pirate to test just how good your defences are. Unless of course you have a carrier nearby, in which case it actually works quite well. Trading is a similar story to mining, reasonable capacity, crap jump range. That range, by the way, is made even worse when you're fully laden too, so I found that the best way of trading is to stay local and adopt the idea that goods should be stolen and not purchased, and then flipped at the nearest black market for a small margin. You've got the armour and the weapons to easily beat a loot-filled ship into submission before making off with the goods, so why not? One of the issues I have with this ship, if, given its name, this is a dropship, why don't the Federation-aligned factions lend a few to frontline solutions for when commanders want to fight for the Federation against other factions on foot? Clearly there is some inherent flaw with the dropship that stops it actually being used as a dropship. I mean, I understand why it would never be used if you wanted to fight the Imperials or an independent faction or the Alliance, but fighting for the Feds? Surely they'd want you to rock up in their own finest dropship, if for no other reason than propaganda. You know, saying, "Look at me, I'm fighting for the Feds. Not only do I have the big guns, but check out our ships too." But instead you turn up in a Vulture, which is a fine ship in its own right, but it's also the same damn ship that every other faction uses to rock up to a conflict. I have seen an argument saying that the dropship is too big, but since Vultures drop you off from the air, I'm not seeing this as a problem. Hover, drop, fly off into the sunset. So as always we come to this. Should you buy it? In this case, that's up to you. I'm finding it hard to recommend the Federal Dropship. Yes, it's a capable ship in terms of raw firepower and armour, but it's got enough flaws that I don't think I can recommend it at the listed price. For a combat ship, the engines just can't keep up for its size, and for everything else you've got that dire FSD holding it back. Maybe if you've already got the rank and you're in a system selling it at a heavy discount, it could be worth looking at. But past this, at least for me, this ship really isn't my bag. Maybe I've failed to gel with it, or maybe I prefer the alternatives too much. Don't get me wrong, I won't be selling this ship, I like a full hangar, but I'll have to revisit it later down the line and maybe, just maybe, I'll find something I like about it, but right here and right now, no. To be fair, part of me thinks this would be a tempting offer if it was cheaper. That price tag feels overpriced for what you get. Maybe if it was a few million cheaper, it would be a bit more reasonable, and I'm not even at the point in Elite where credits even matter that much. So that's the Federal Dropship. On that rather negative note, it's time to end. Have a cracking week, and I'll catch you on the next video. 07.